the other parts that I had here, just so that you can see how everything is connected in New York City, all the dots connect. The next part is actually about the New York Dolls playing at the Mercer Arts Center. And I've got a quote from Tommy in the book about seeing the New York Dolls. And Tommy formed a band called Butch at that time, Tommy. And his friend Dee Dee Colvin, Douglas Dee Dee Colvin, also loved the New York Dolls, and so did John Cummings, who became Johnny Ramone. I've got a quote from Elder about the New York Dolls, seeing them there. They brought hard rock music back in. And then we actually go from there to Elder Gentile forming her own group with Holly Woodlawn called Pure Garbage. And then we go from there to her forming a group called the Stilettos with Chris Stein, well actually with Debbie Harry. And I will read this little bit because if I can, and then I think we'll just jump in because this is kind of nice and it helps us bring it all up. Gentile had bailed out of her partnership with Holly Woodlawn called Pure Garbage after a gig at Reno Sweeney's when the owner had suggested they had the makings of a proper cabaret act. Gentile didn't want to do cabaret, not now the New York Dolls had put rock back on the map. She wanted her own band, and I thought maybe if I could get a couple of girls and we all switch off, it would give the music a lot more vocal variety. Along with Debbie Harry, she recruited the third singer, Rosie Ross, 2 members of the group Queen Elizabeth, who were using her apartment for rehearsals anyway, and Youngblood, the Magic Tramps guitarist. The Stilettos were born. With 3 girl singers up front, their influences were hard to disguise. The Supremes, the Angels, leader of the pack, admitted Gentile. The 6-piece Stilettos unveiled themselves inauspiciously at the Boburn Tavern on 28th Street in September '73. Knowing Chris Stein through Eric Emerson, Gentile invited him along to the show. Stein attended, and that, he said, was that. And then the final connection, I mean, there's actually 2 more connections because they are really important. Here's the next one. The Stilettos changed considerably over the following months. Breaking up temporarily, they reformed with a new 3rd singer, Amanda Jones, a new drummer, Billy O'Connor, and a new bass player, Fred Smith. An accomplished musician, Smith was not part of the downtown scene, and he was granted entry to the group only on condition that he cut off his mutton chops. Figuring that the Stilettos were going places, he agreed. At CBGB's, the Stilettos were immediately taken by the club's homeliness. It was the kind of place where you felt you could do anything you frickin' wanted because it was so trash to begin with, said Gentile. There was a sense of freedom in that venue. And Hilly, who thought he was running a country and western club, was like a fatherly figure, and he was very nurturing. He needed to be. The Stilettos were about as far from country bluegrass and blues as one could get. It was pretty campy, recalled Fred Smith, who soon got into the glittery swing of things. We did a couple of disco songs in an unprofessional manner. Chris Stein had by now moved into Debbie Harry's apartment on Thompson Street in Soho, renting out his apartment on First and First to Tommy and Debbie. And just to jump ahead, the Stilettos did break up and Chris and Debbie went on to form Blondie. So I say Chris and Debbie took the rhythm section with them, and a couple of months later, with Ivan Crawl on second guitar, they unveiled themselves at CBGB's with much the same material under a new name, Angel and the Snake. They gave the opening slot to their friend Tommy Adeli's new band, the Ramones. So you can see just how these things just keep connecting. All right, with that, enough of reading from the book. I hope people didn't mind me kind of taking that. I'm going to just throw this out. Is that mic good for the 2 of you? How should we do this? You understand? Well, I wanted to just like ask a real, very basic question of everybody first, and just ask their own opinion, like, what makes New York City special? I mean, you know, that's simple, and I think, you know, Eric, I mean, you know, seniority here.
Yes, I'm 70 now. Hard to believe. But I want to stand up because I want to look at you people. I don't know where to begin. Just sitting here listening to all this stuff brings back the same feeling and emotion that I had every Sunday of warm weather in late 40s and 50s and into the 60s, going to Washington Square Park and playing music with my friends. And we actually have a Yahoo group dedicated to that now, that you sort of have to be one of those people who did this. And we've had reunions every year now. We started reunions, we've had about 4 or 5 of them now. And driving down there from here, and parking my car on, McDougal Street or somewhere there, and taking my banjo out of the trunk and just walking a couple of blocks to the square. I get the same feeling. I'm going to the square, I'm going to play with my friends, and it was a phenomenal thing, and it still is fun. We do it once a year in September. So let me just start with, I have a bunch of pictures here. I don't know if this is a good thing to do, but my parents were basically born in 1907, so they lived through all this kind of music early. My mom's 102 now. She remembers almost all of this. And my dad was a photographer. He was official photographer of the Waldorf Astoria, which is another story. But so my whole life was kind of documented from like 3 seconds out of the womb, And my dad collected early. His hobby was collecting very early jazz records, 78s, from, I would say, 100 years ago, from today and earlier. So I grew up, and he had thousands of them. I grew up listening to that every night. I grew up listening to my mom play the piano and accompany opera singers who lived in the project that I lived in on the Lower East Side down near Chinatown, Knickerbocker Village, where lived also the Rosenbergs, Zero Mostel, the Sawyer brothers, the painters, and that kind of people, as well as normal people. And it was a fantastic place to grow up. So my early recollection of listening to music was early jazz, which is a 2-beat thing, and could be part of the reason why I like bluegrass so much. It's also a 2-beat thing, and also the bands are almost identical when you start to think about it. You have 3 lead instruments: trumpet, clarinet, trombone for jazz, and 3 rhythm guys. And for bluegrass, it's mandolin, fiddle, and banjo, and guitar and bass, rhythm, and the same 2-beat feeling. Now I listen to nothing but, not nothing, but mostly classical, but big band jazz from the 20s and 30s. And my dad collected these also because he was a little bit older then, and that's what he was growing up on. And the music is absolutely phenomenal. But so I had it, and I went to Camp Woodland starting in 1944 when I was 5. My parents sent me away to sleepaway camp for 2 months every summer. So I went to Little Red Schoolhouse and Elizabeth Irvin. By the way, Monday is Memorial, I want to call it a bash, service for Mary Travers. So, bye Mary, I'll be there on Monday. And I met Mary. She was about 3 years older than I was, and I remember sitting in the balcony in the gym at EI, sitting with her somehow under this little balcony watching a basketball game and singing Hank Williams' Weary Blues. It's a vivid memory. And this is, I'm going to say, this is probably 1951. Of course, I'd been playing, I was 7th grade then. She was probably 10th grade, maybe. But I've been playing for a long time. And it was pretty good. And mention has been made of my early playing. And here's a picture of myself and my best friend, oldest friend. We grew up together, born 2 months apart, from sets of parents that were lifelong best friends. My dad and his dad grew up in the slums of the Upper East Side in 1910, thereabouts. And so here's a picture of Mickey Vandal and me on an excursion from Little Red Schoolhouse with a bunch of other kids who were singing and playing and stuff like that, on Oscar Brand's radio program. Is this silly to do this with pictures?
I don't know.
I hope not. Oscar Brand's radio program in the municipal building, right just only a few blocks from where I live.